Welcome back. Today we're going to tie one of my favorite flies of all time. It's called a Woolly Sculpin, but you know, I had a Canadian gal in one of my classes one time told me I stole this. It was a bow bugger, and I explained to her, no, I did not steal the bow bugger. I stole Ed Shenk's Sculpinator. Ed Shenk, unbeknownst to me until I tied the fly, I saw this in it, and it wasn't that old either. It was in the 80s sometime. Ed Shenk did a article in Fly Fisherman called Sculpinating, and I think it was before the Terminator movie too, so it was really, the guy was way ahead of his time. His didn't have hackle on it, but other than that, it was identical. But it's also his style of head that I really like too, the way he styles his heads. But what I wanted to do is a fly that was really not that complex. We do a lot of complex flies. And I was telling Johnny and Jeremy when we were shooting yesterday that I think if I narrowed it down, I think the tan Woolly Sculpin, I've caught more fish in that 22 to 5 range than any other fly. Maybe the cougar, but I don't. It's been one of my absolute go-to flies. You can do this fly in white, black, tan, olive. I mean, anything you want, really. You can do it in a conehead version here. You can see, I mean, I have produced in a lot of different styles. This is a conehead version. Works great for pocket water. You can do it with this is a two-toner where it's got a white head and a brown belly, white belly on the head and brown on top. It's got a disco belly, you know, see, I just used cactus chenille on that one. You can do it in just a multitude of ways. But I wanted to do a fly that was super simple, a great learn. We get so many people right in saying, I just read one this morning. The guy said he was a 64-year-old beginning fly tyer. What's cooler than that? I mean, taking up a hobby at that age, and it's, you know, you don't want to start with a triple articulated fly. You want to start with something single hook. So I just wanted to do what's kind of basic, but I didn't want to do what was basic and that I wouldn't fish. I mean, you know, Woolly Bugger's really basic. I just don't fish them very often. This fly is a Sculpin imitation, and I still to this day I fish this fly almost every day I'm on the river. It's just, like I said, it's one of my favorites. So I'm going to walk you through what we've got here. I personally tie most of my standard hook flies, you know, single hook flies. I tie on Dairikis. I mean, I use most of my double hooks, my articulated stuff are Daiichis, ring eye hooks, flat eye hooks like that. I tie almost all my cougars, woolies, butt monkeys, stuff like that on a down eye 710 number 2. The thing about this hook is most streamers are done on 4X. I like the 3X and I go up a size. All you get the same length hooked in, but what you really get is you get a little bit more gap and just a little bit better. I just like this hook. It's the one I like, and it doesn't matter if you like a different one. That's great. That's the one I like. And it's a very economical hook. Got a great fit and finish. Next thing we're going to have is the tail. The standard one which is right here, was the original. That was the original one I ever did way back when, and it had this cream tail. I used just standard Marabou cream, nothing to it. Today I'm going to, just because it's really cool looking, I'm going to do this MFC barred Marabou. I love this stuff. This is one of the few natural materials that they've man-made barred that I really dig. It's got a real natural look to it. Second thing, which is great segue here, Chenille. Chenille bodies. This one's been on the shelf so long. Jeremy told me it's been here since he was born or came here, one or the other. But Chenille's kind of a dying thing. You just don't see it as much. Still see it in patch rubber legs and stuff like that. I'm going to jazz it just a little. I'm going to put a little bit of, this is the new age Chenille. It just has a little bit of flashaboos stuck in the weave. It just gives a little sparkle. Just because it's fun. The next thing it's going to take is we're going to have some strung hackle. You do not have to have quality hackle for this. You can use Indian necks, which is a great use for Indian necks. They're really cheap. I like this strung hackle. The other thing, what I'm probably going to do, because I have these, as you can see, I've ate the sweet spot of this neck up, right? And it's just, there's nothing left of it. That's where I tie most of my flies out of. And this is a pretty old one. And so what you're going to see is I've got a lot of these old long neck hackles up here. Perfect. I like the shine of this stuff. That's why I use strung hackle when I do it. If you're going to do it in the bag, I don't like schlopping on these. I mean, it's personal. I like that little bit of shine that comes on the rooster necks. Last thing we're going to need is hair. We'll do a really quick tutorial on that hair stuff. I've got two. These are both whitetails. They're just different times of the year. I'm going to show you a little bit about that. So, pretty quick through. This is a fast fly. It's really not a complicated fly, but it's one that you can learn a ton on. You can tie this fly properly. If you do it right, you're going to learn 3 or 4 things. I actually did a couple yesterday. I did a couple things on just tying tips, and we use this fly because they're just basic things that we do. So the first thing we're going to do, and I'm going to use GSP 100, which I tie almost all my flies on. So, like with all the flies, what you're going to do first, you're going to take this one here and you're going to take a reference that tells you where your head starts and where everything else has to stop. And so, you're going to start your thread, about a quarter of the way in here. And all that does, what that does by starting your thread right here, it tells you you can't go past that. You're not going to end up with all your stuff way up here by the eye of the hook. If you have a reference that says don't go past this point, you won't have a tendency to rush the head. That's the most common error in fly tying. So put that, give it, like I said, take this, put something up there so you just get an idea. If you go a little bit each side, it won't matter, but if you don't, you end up getting way forward and you will end up not having room to put the head on. I probably do, I don't know how many dozens and dozens of tying seminars a year, and I'll have 20, 30, 40, 60 people in one of these things, and I guarantee you the person who races forward the fastest is always the one who rushes their head, and then they always say, "What happened?" Well, you didn't listen. They're just trying to get the fly done quick. You're not going to speed this fly up too much. Just do it right, and it'll be a nice clean fly. They last forever, and the more you put into it right now, the longer the fly will last. So, like with all the flies, we use the hook as the gauge. We're going to use the hook. I want the tail to be. If you ever err in this, err long. If the tail's too long, who cares? It'll really whip, but don't make it too short. I go up here and I bump the eye of the hook. There's the end of the marabou. That's where I tie it in. Okay, I'm going to pinch wrap, 1, 2, and then I want to show you how I do my bodies. And I go up the side of this thing, right here, and I build, and you can see what I did is I built it on one side. Let me see it better there or not, but I built it on one side. And all I'm doing is I'm building a taper into my body. So I went up, came back, tail's nice and tight right on top. Now I'm going to take, that's the cream. And I got to tell you, in a lot of you'll see this color. I love this color. Especially when you have a sculpin, they have a very pearly, creamy body, underside. And I really like to see that in my flies. I think it's really, it looks good, but it's a fish catcher. Okay, now I'm going to take one more. I like to, if I didn't do this, if I wasn't doing 2 different colors, I would put a second one on, a second cream one on. But I'm just doing this one just a little bit sexier than the old-fashioned one. And you've heard me say many times, just wet that. You really don't want to put this in your mouth all day. Just get a sponge like this and put it on the table. And what it does, it allows you to work with something that's not all crazy like this stuff was. And it just lets you, and it's not going to stay there long, so it gives you a reference point. Now, I don't have to measure the hook this time because I can lay the hook, with the hook, I mean. This time I can just lay this right on top, put it exactly the same length as the other one. Give yourself a pinch wrap. Now on this one I'm going to do the same thing, except I'm going to come up the back side. And I can hear people say, "Oh, it takes too long to do that." It doesn't take 3 seconds longer to do that. And now what you see, I'm building a taper. Everything in fly tying is tapers. And you establishing that taper. Now I'm going to take this is brassy gold wire. I'm going to counter wrap this. And I want to show you something. I thought about it the other day. I was doing a seminar I think 2 years ago, and I put that in the side of, I want to show you this. I was kind of amazed that the person didn't know, but this is not permanent, this thing on top, right? You pull it off, and it's how you secure your wire. He was just dumbfounded at the fact when he saw me go like this and put it back in there, and it holds it in the place. And I said, wow, I just never really thought of it. So that's been out for a long time. And he had rubber bands all over his stuff, and it was still unwinding. And then I looked around the room, and I could tell a lot of other people had not seen that either. But it's just a simple little, on all this, ultra wire UTC stuff, they've all got that top. And so I want to show you real quickly here. This is wire. I leave it. I don't try to conserve on my wire. I just leave it long so I can work with it. But I want to show you how I like to put this in. So remember the first time I tied in that Marabou, I came up, I went back, tied in the next one, I got it here. Don't go back right now. Just leave it right on top. Take your wire, give it 2 or 3 turns, wrap that tag end, and I cut this off right in the middle of the hook, so I help build my, I don't know if you can see that. So I build my taper in advance right now. But most of what I'm doing is I'm securing my wire, so I don't get ready to use it and pull it out. So I come up here, and now I'm just going to go back to where I'll add my other materials. And I like this wire to stay on the top, right there. Finish off. Now we're going to add our chenille. I'm going to use this New Age, I like this really sexy looking stuff. I'm going to show you a real quick trick. We did this yesterday, so it's fresh in my mind. How to tie this stuff in. So when you start, you've got all this stuff in here that's the same length, and it's kind of bulky. And what you do is just take your fingernail and strip that off. Just grab it with your thumbnail, go like that. Now we're going to tie in just the 2 strands of the cotton thread is all it is. And then another thing I forgot to say is, if you leave this in the bag and just pull it out, just leave it in there. Get used to leaving it there. You won't have it, flopping all over the place. I have to put it back in there. One good secure set right there. Make sure it's there. Pick up all those ends. Now that stuff's really tied in, right? You're not going to have any of it slip off. You're going to have it tied in just by the threads. Now, with all chenilles, with all material, even on my dubbing loops and stuff like that, you do your first set, you do 1 complete turn around, grab with your finger and your thumb, grab your tail, and watch this. I set it. See how I stretch that? It sets in. 1, 2, 3, 4, stretch. 1, 2, 3, 4, stretch. Just keep anchoring those. Stretch. Now you can see, let me cut this off. I mean, it's minor, but you'll see it. I have built a taper, and the materials, it's actually it's starting to widen like this. You're trying to build it. The minnow is not fatter in the back than he is in the front. He's got a skinny butt, and he goes to a fat head, and we're trying to build that taper as we go. So I'm going to use one of these. And by the way, on the original Shenk Sculpin, I can't remember. I think it's like 1982 or 5 Fly Fisherman. When Ed did it, and his were way sexy. If you see them, and they're color photos, and they're really good. But he did his with Marabou, and then he did fox dubbing, and he didn't put hackle in it, and then he put another Marabou right here. And I've been doing that on some of my really big ones. I put another Marabou plume on. I'm not going to do it on this one, but if you wanted to add another Marabou plume right here, that's how Ed's were originally. It's really cool looking. The fish is great, by the way. I'm going to pull one of these. I'm going to pull a darker of the brown. I generally do kind of tone on tone with these. If it's a brown fly, I'm going to use a tan. Or tan fly, I'm going to use a brown or cream. I did that one yesterday when we were doing the demo, and this one's got schlop, and you can see it's this ginger, light ginger. It was really pretty looking. But the thing with schlopping is it tends to you can see it's really kind of bulky and it's kind of fuzzy. I like the old way better. That's really pretty, but And I don't think it would make any difference on the fishability of that. You just get used to doing things. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take this hackle. This is a pretty big hackle. I'm going to strip it down to where it's all about the shaft being thin enough to wrap. So I don't want it, if it's really thick and you go like this, you'll see that it snapped, right? It doesn't flex, right? So I need it to flex so it doesn't break. So I went up here to the fat part and it kinks. You can't have that. So I'm going to cut this. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to catch that. You're going to bump I say this every seminar I've ever done, every video. You come in from the right side, you bump this underneath the hook, and you just bump it into your thread. Do one turn, come back over the top of it. You've just done a figure 8, 1, 2, and set it. And I mean, you can pull on this, right? It's anchored. And so we're going to have that sitting there. If you work with GSP, it doesn't stretch, so it doesn't hurt to put in a half hitch right there. So now I'm going to, and we're going to learn, this is counter wrapping your fly, counter wrapping your hackle, excuse me. So I'm going to set this down to the side so it doesn't get trapped. I'm going to do one complete turn, and I'm going to set that. I give it a good pull. I'm just looking at it, just get used to which, how much you can do. And then just take your vise. If you're not using a rotary, you got to walk around it with your hands. Not a big deal. So now I'm going to, and this is why I wanted that wire on the top. I want a good complete wrap when I come around here. And so I know that that's set really well. And then I'm catching, I'm going to turn this over so you can see. I'm catching, can you see that pretty close, Jeremy? I'm catching this hackle. I had it in my hand. I come around with the wire and I just catch the tip of that hackle. All right, that's what's anchoring it in. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to go forward in nice even wraps, and that's the beauty of a rotary vise. As a matter of fact, I think it's what makes it, it's the best virtue of the vise. We're going to go in here and basically I'm going to set this angle like about right there, and all I'm going to do is leave my hand and I'm going to go forward, and you see how fast I went through that? The faster you go, the less hackles you catch. You just don't, you set it and just let the vise do the job. I set it at an angle, probably 30 degrees or so, and I just zip, went forward. Now I've caught that hackle. Every single turn I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 turns of hackle. So I set the hackle when I did it. That way I have an even number of turns on it. And now you trim that little end off. It's been caught. It really can't unravel at this point. You can just break your wire, go right over top of it, give yourself a spot, come in there, get rid of that hackle stem. Bingo. That's about as simple as a fly can get, is right there. Now, poor you, I'm going to talk more. Hard to believe, right? So, we are going to, just real quickly, I have a bunch of stuff on hair. I probably have 3 or 4 different YouTube things on the hair selection. I'm just going to go really quick. This is a natural hair we're going to tie with. I'm going to go through it really quick, just kind of what you're looking for. These are both whitetail hairs. These are both, this hair is identical. It's, both whitetail, same region, all that. This is a really late season deer. This hair right here, and quite frankly, I think this is mule deer, but actually I'm positive of it. I grabbed the wrong, but it's a great example nonetheless. But what I want you to see is what you look for in your hair, and this is my demo hair, this is perfect. It's what you're looking for is this clean break right here, that dark line. You can see it on this one, it's a clean break. There's a darker line. That I'm going to use this stuff, it's finer. The later the hair gets, later in the season the hair gets, the bigger it gets. It's thicker. Hair is designed to keep heat into the animal's body. And so the later it goes into the season, you want to catch it before it goes too far in, because too far into the season, it's starting to lose that distinct line right there. It's all getting mixed up, and it starts getting more brittle, and it starts filling with this stuff underneath here, which is fur. It'll look like dubbing. I don't know if you can see that. When I clean it, you will. But what you're looking for is about 1 inch to 1.5 inches between the hide and that clean break. And real important, even on your short, fine deer hair, as you'll see, this has a very accentuated curve to it. But you see those little wrinkles? Can you see that, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. Those little wrinkles, what that tells you is the more little wrinkle you've got in there, it's hollow hair. That's the air gap. That's what's keeping the deer warm. That's what makes it spin really easy. And if you look at this hair right here, same thing, it's a little shorter, and it's got a little bit of wrinkle to it. It's just compressed. It's not as late in the season. That could be the same deer, 5 weeks difference in time. So, and when you look at these hairs, don't shoot yourself in the leg. When you clean this hair, what you're going to see, I'm not going to use that one, but, and this is great hair, by the way, even though it's that later in the season. What you're looking for is hair that doesn't have a lot of fuzz, right? There's not a lot of that. You've got fur, directional hair, and guard hair. The fur is the fuzzy stuff that makes it hard for you to work with the fly. That's what it just gets trapped in there, and you can't really spin your hair the way you want to. So I'm going to take this first piece. We're going to show you how to set a collar properly. I'm going to take a pretty good piece, and I'm going to show you the first thing you do is after you cut it off the hide, put it in if you're a right-hand tire, put it in your left hand. And what I want to do is I want to spin it open like that. And so now it's open so I can put it in the comb and I can clean it out easily. It gets all that little hair out of that little fur out of it. Now pack it back together. Grab your J. Nick stacker. Can't tie without one. The beauty of this stacker is that you can look inside it and see that the hair's, if it's stacked or not. And then it's all just sitting there, comes right out, one-handed. And it's all perfectly aligned, right where you want it. Now, everybody's different. I like my collars to be 1/3 the body length of the hook, basically. You know, that's just personal preference. If you like it, you know, a half or a quarter, that's just how you like it. But to get there, you got to use your hook as your point of reference. And so you set it up here until you've got, and then you set it right there. It's going to be a little longer than 1/3. So I'm right there. I use the eye of the hook. I butt my fingers up against it. I'm right here. Then I'm going to transfer it, and that just and every time you transfer, you try to keep this bundled. You come across your fingers like this, and you just try to keep it bundled. And so you don't move the ends of the tips. You're going to move a little bit, but not much. And now I'm going to show you how to do a collar properly. Ideally, this collar should be halfway around the top of the hook, not underneath. You don't spin this all the way around the hook. You don't have to go in and trim it later. You go in here, and you're going to set it right on top, and it's not going to spin. So we're going to set this at the 1/3 point. And what we're going to do is we're going to make a nice, clean cut straight up that. All right? So now I'm going to take my bobbin and I'm going to spin it a little bit to the right. That makes the thread lean back to my left. It's catching on the hackles, but you don't want it to fight it. You don't want to fight you. You want it to go into the hair and not being forward like this. And if your thread goes this way, just give your bobbin a turn to the right. If you like things that go to the right. What? Okay, now we're going to set this. You see how I've got this pinched kind of long? We're going to come in here and we're going to set, and we're going to let it go a little bit down into the body, but I've got my finger and my thumb squeezed really tight around the body of the fly. And so now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab this. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to grab that like that, and I've still got a hold of the fly very tightly. And you can see I'm forming this beautiful little elk hair caddis head. I come in here, I pull it tight, I don't let go with my left hand and my fingers, and I do, as soon as that thread disappears, when it starts to go into that hair and I don't see it, I put my second turn in. So now I have 2 turns, and I have not released any pressure on that head, on the body of the fly. Okay? So now I've got 2 really tight turns. There's a third that goes through it. I come in here, and you push down just a little bit on the head, right? And so now I've got a really big, beautiful collar. God loves a big collar. Okay, and so then what you do, and if you did it right, you had a hold of the fly nice and tight with your fingers underneath the hair. And what it allowed me to do is I spun my, is that good on your close-up, Jeremy? Mm-hmm. What I've done is I've got this, I pinched it, pushed it down just a little bit to flare it, but you can see that you shouldn't, I can't see it, but there shouldn't be any hair down underneath there. If you do it right, you're building a collar. It's supposed to be pectoral fins. That's all it is. They're out the side of the fly. They're not underneath the fly. They're right here. So if you do it right, and if it didn't quite work, just squeeze that thing. I mean, it's perfect. You should be able to see the body on both sides. And you can see this little tiny elk hair cat. By the way, that's how you make an elk hair caddis too. You shouldn't go in and trim your elk hairs. You should do it, set it the same way, and get this perfectly little flared head, because now they're all the same length. That's a lot of flotation on your dry flies. Okay, so I messed around with that a lot, so I'm going to give it one more turn through the middle of that just to make sure, because I was playing with it a lot there. So now what you've got is you've got no bulk in front. So when I put this next spin of hair, pretend the tips of my scissors are the hair, when I put this spin in that we're going to do next, when I flare it, that hair is going to lay right into my collar. That's going to give me, when you look at the head, it should flare into, that hair should go into your collar. There should be no air gap in here, something that makes it look like two different pieces. It should blend right in. So now you can see I didn't go past that mark on the fly, on the head. I've got lots of room to spin my head. I'm going to do, generally on my flies, I do one spin. You can see I'm going to take a pretty good chunk of hair here. We're going to do the same thing we did before. We're going to spin it in our hand. I've got a little bit more than I did before. And so I'm going to make double sure this is really good hair, so I'm not cleaning. See, I don't have a whole lot of fur. I'll grab a piece of bad hair in a second and I'll do through there. And you can see this, there's not much in this. If that was bad hair, it would be just packed full of junk, all that fur. Now I'm going to come in here and I'm going to take this hair. And there's no guessing when you spin hair. It's really not difficult at all. I have, my personal theory is that I think you should have 2.5 turns, and when that hair spins, it'll go around, and I've got a bunch of tutorials on how to do that too. But it's going to go around one time. You can see that. When I put this in, it's going to go around once. I'm going to start with 2.5. The hair's going to go around one time. That means that the thread is pinched down around, and it should have one turn of thread around it, and it'll be secured right to the hook. That's the key. You're trying to get this thread so close to the hook that there's no movement to the hair. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to go 1, just like before. See how it's starting to disappear into there? 2. I'm letting it, this whole time I'm letting the hair work down around the hook. Trying to get it kind of, the whole bunch of it, to be right dead in the center. You start with it on top. And as I put that first one, I'm letting the hair kind of wiggle down around the middle of the hook. Now here's my second one. There's one turn, right? There's nothing left. If I pull any harder, the hair went around once, and then my thread cinched down to the hook. If I pull any harder, you can see the hair's not moving, it's set. And then just work your way through the hair right back to the front. If you want to put a second, I don't put 2 on most of my own. I just put a single. I'm going to move this back just a little bit. Just want to show you one thing. Just in case, you can see I don't have much room here. If you have a second one you have to spin, I'm just going to show you. I was confused about this for a long time when I was tying when I was younger. I thought that if you did a second spin that you had to do it at an angle. And you put it at an angle, but you do it for a reason. The reason is because when you come through here, you don't want to catch this hair with your thread. Ideally, when you do this, your hair's back, and you grab it with your middle finger, just get it back, and you come in at an angle so you can see that you didn't capture hair. All right, now I've got 2 turns on there, and I just filled it up a little bit more. If you didn't have enough, but that's why you put it at an angle, so you can pull it back and you can see that you haven't caught a bunch of hair there. All right. Bingo. Now the fun part. I'm going to take a double-edged razor blade. We're going to go in here. You don't get forever out of a single blade, I can tell you. You know, 5 or 6 heads to a side and you're pretty much done. So look for them at the dollar store. I find them all over the place, sometimes, you know, big package. And just as a quick note, you'll see a lot of these things that hold the blades. I don't like them. And that's personal. Don't. If you love them, great, good for you. I find it harder to control them when I'm out here. I put it in my hand, you know, never cut myself. Just always stabilize your blade and put your left hand on the vise somewhere. Put your hand on this thing. I always turn mine over and do the bottom first. So I'm going to turn this over. I'm going to stabilize my hand. I'm going to draw this at a 45-degree angle to cut a nice flat spot on the bottom. Looking right over top of it, just come in and cut 1, 2. You should be fine. Now I'm going to, you've got a nice flat bottom on your fly. So now I'm going to take the blade and I'm going to bend it. And you know, there is no right or wrong way to do this. This is just how you got to decide what you like. So I'm going to bend it right here. I'm going to come in and I'm going to track that. I'm going to go right back into the collar. Because the collar was set at a 45-degree angle this way, I can actually push this blade right into it and I cut almost none of those hairs. And so now I've got most of that shaped and trimmed the way I want it for the top view. Then I come over, I take it out of the vise, I come in from this side and I make a double cut. I come in and I just get them even, 1, 2. A couple stragglers there. And that's all she wrote. That fly would be done, ready to go. It could use a little trimming right there. Now if you've got, that's the shape I'm looking for right here. It's kind of, I haven't finished it out yet. So I'm just looking for that nice broad shape. I've got the big collar, it's nice and fat. That's going to stabilize the fly. It's got a little bit more on it than I want, so I'm just going to come in here and I'm going to trim it out just a little bit. So I still got a little of that hair in there. You can mess with this until this fly is bald, I can assure you. I try not to do too much of this on my flies because you end up taking a lot of your hair off. I try to get it done right the first 1 or 2 times. I always come back and I always look over top of the hook. I'm always like this because what I'm looking for is I want balance. I don't want it one side really short, one side really long, and I can't do that when I go like this in the vise. Maybe you can. I mean, it's just however you learn to do it. I just find it easier for me to go even 1, 2, just like that. That is a Woolly Sculpin. It's a super quick fly if you're not talking too much. It's a fast fly. You can do it with wool if you want. I like it with hair, the head. That's the most common question I get on this fly. Hey, have you ever tried wool? Yeah, I've tried wool. I like hair. I put hair on there for a reason. It does what I want it to do. This fly really hasn't changed much in forever. It's still one of my favorites. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope that helps you out. Brown, what can Brown do for you?